We are about to hear Cormac McCarthy comment on the German phenomenologist Martin Heidegger, and then talk about the purpose of philosophy. And afterwards, we are going to have a discussion on McCarthy's thoughts because he takes a very contrarian view of what academia and the Reddit philosophy bros believe most of the time. So if you guys are new to this channel, Cormac McCarthy is one of the few authors I'm doing a deep dive into for probably the next year or two. So if you are interested in joining a Cormac McCarthy community, discussing his works and exploring a ton of funky theories, subscribe to the channel and make sure to sign up to the newsletter down below for a bunch of exclusive content. And because very soon I am launching the Cormac McCarthy course for $5 a month for the month of December, we're going to be having a couple book club discussions a week, of Discord, a bunch of other cool stuff. So sign up to the newsletter down below if you're interested in that. And let's hear from Cormac now.
Compare him to Heidegger, for instance. I've read a bit of Heidegger. Nowhere in there is there anything about the moral life or whether that means anything. Or it didn't mean anything to him. He didn't consider it to be worth his attention. Whereas Wittgenstein thought, say, Wittgenstein and Heidegger's because they're generally conceived to be the two foremost philosophers of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And yet they're so very different.
Yeah.
And particularly now that Heidegger's journals have been published, you see, no, he really was a Nazi.
Yeah, he was.
It's not just and he did horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess ultimately you have to ask yourself the question that if philosophy is not concerned with how you should live, what in the hell is it concerned with?
So Cormac is 100% correct here with his assertion. And there is this virus that has been sweeping over the community for the past couple decades where we are not integrating the knowledge that we are reading anymore. I know so many people who are geniuses and have read so much, but they have not integrated that knowledge into their character. They have not used it to become a stronger character in the simulation of IRL. Instead, a lot of the time, their knowledge actually separates them from everyone else. I call it the knowledge parabola, that when you first touch knowledge and you start reading, about Marxism and capitalism and philosophy, your social life starts to plummet a little bit because you want everyone to understand what you understand, and you start to realize that no one else really cares. And you may not be able to find other people or only a select few people, and you maybe feel frustrated that all the men or women in the world that you want to date can't talk to you about this stuff or they don't care. And so a lot of people now, more and more people are getting stuck here at the bottom of the parabola because eventually, if you realize that people who don't read are not sheep, that everyone is just a human being and reading is important and can make you a better person, and philosophy. That is the point, as we're hearing here from Cormac McCarthy. The point of philosophy is to change how we live and how we think. And really, he's probably saying into more ethical human beings. Once you realize that, then you can you go to the other side of the parabola and you can have way better social experiences because you're more empathetic to all different types of experiences and philosophies, and you can connect with people where they are at from a place of unity rather than division. And that's what's happened in academia with Reddit philosophy bros, is that there's just so much division. Like even on this channel, I get a couple hate comments a week, not just about what I'm saying, but who I am. And I think this is all because people are not integrating all this knowledge that they are reading, or they're just dumb trolls, which they are. And so I like how McCarthy contrasted Wittgenstein and Heidegger, because when we think, if anyone out here read any Wittgenstein, man, reading Wittgenstein's like you want to hit yourself in the head. It can be very hard, somewhat abstract, logical. You have to follow. There's a system, and you follow it. But then as McCarthy said, it's about living a different life and thinking differently. But then when you read Martin Heidegger, it is so personal and so revelatory, and it's about being in time, his most famous work, and a lot of his other work is at a genius level also. But it never discusses that. It never discusses the point of Dasein. What is the point of understanding the beingness of being unless you're going to use that knowledge to become a good being? What's the point, everybody? And I love that with this, Heidegger has a connection. And if you guys don't know, the German phenomenologist, philosopher Martin Heidegger, was a Nazi. And he wasn't just like a person who had to just accept the terms and conditions. He joined the Nazi party early on, and he actually ratted out some of his coworkers and other people in his life for being Jewish or for doing other things. And he lived 30 years after World War II ended, and he only apologized one time in a private conversation, or said something like, that was a dumb mistake. That's all he ever said. He never apologized. apologized or took anything back. He just continued moving forward with his life. So he wasn't very seemingly that remorseful about it. He was not a very good human being. But here's an interesting connection that maybe some of you guys haven't thought of before. That Martin Heidegger really was the first major Western philosopher to integrate a lot of the knowledge of Eastern philosophy into the Western philosophical or continental system. People in India knew a lot of the revelations and content of phenomenology 2,000 years ago. But it's interesting that they didn't use that knowledge to become better citizens and become better characters. They used it to experience mystical states. They used it most of the time to renounce. And when you look at yoga, of course, in Indian philosophy, we have the yamas and the niyamas, and we have adhisma and nonviolence. But the history of India is very, very violent. And it's a very passive system. When you have a system that says do not engage, that it doesn't matter, that all the pain in the world is samskaras or karma, and it's all up to fate, then you have people who renounce away from life and focus on their own enlightenment. I call it the My Enlightenment movement. It's still a huge thing today. We have the whole New Age and spiritual community, and all they care about is their own enlightenment, but not the world's enlightenment out of lower consciousness and pain into unity and connection. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that Martin Heidegger, someone who was, was a person who was into the experience of being, missed the whole point, like I think a lot of Eastern philosophy does, of being a being, the ontology of phenomenology. So what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below if you guys have started to see this trend starting to occur. And of course you can see it. We've really saw this crank up with the whole incel movement, and the whole social anxiety movement are making this just grow exponentially every single year, because social anxiety has always existed. It is very nerve-wracking to have to engage in social situations, especially if you haven't for a long time. But being a courageous character, someone who's integrated some of the knowledge they've read or learned in life, does not mean you have an absence of fear. It means that you have fear, but you do it anyway. And eventually, as with every other skill, you start to become comfortable in social situations, and you don't have this anxiety anymore. But all this anxiety is making people withdraw in very interesting ways. They either just withdraw completely, or they start consuming, because we're living in this age of hyper reality where we have all this knowledge out there. We have a lot of different aspects of philosophy and psychology and all this, and literature and all this stuff out there. And it's getting hit with us, left and right. It's hitting us left and right. But one, we don't know how to process that data. We have no overarching system that tells us what to do with this knowledge. So we're basically just a bunch of free-form beings out there trying to figure out what to do. And this has generally had disastrous results, because it's just like someone saying, when they're 12, I'm going to become an Olympic gymnast and I don't need a coach. It's like, no, you need a coach and a system. And having critical thinking systems and learning ways to integrate the knowledge is important. And at some level, that's what some of the classic education and university system was about. That of course we were learning knowledge and doing these things, but they had rituals, they had connections and a social life, and they played sports and did all these different things. They were living a very Greek-oriented lifestyle, and I understand that a lot of people weren't. A lot of minorities and women weren't able to live that lifestyle. But that doesn't mean that we need to scrap that and throw that away. Being able to live a diversified life is the best way to integrate all the knowledge that you were bringing in. If we look at Cormac McCarthy, a lot of his novels are grappling with good and evil. They're showing the demise of characters and playing with concepts of theodicy. And so I want to know from you guys, what philosophers have changed your life, changed how you actually lived? I remember when I got really into Nietzsche. Nietzsche changed the conception of myself, learning about the Superman, the Ubermensch, changed my objective view of reality into a more subjective one. I saw myself as someone who could become something greater, who could take an evolutionary step into the unknown. Have I done that yet? Absolutely not. But I am thinking and becoming and striving toward that every single day. And obviously that, as we saw what happened with Nietzsche's philosophy and the Nazis, that, certain philosophies can be used for bad. But if you have that axiomatic base of, am I using this? What am I using this for? Am I using this to live a better life, or a more moral, or more just, or more compassionate life? These are the questions you need to have. But it's somewhat troubling and problematic, because a lot of people don't even believe in objective morality or truth in general at the start. They don't believe in a priori human rights and other things. So it's very hard to even start to get started on this journey, because if you don't have those things, what do you really have if you don't believe in at least some level of objective rights, morality, freedom, and other things? And that has become, once again, moral relativism has become a huge trend over the last even 100 years. The philosophy of German idealism, Schelling and Hegel and Jacob Boehme, if I'm saying his name wrong, all those guys, they showed me that nature is not just, this place we go on vacation, that it is much deeper than that it could be at some level God's unconscious, and that examining and understanding nature and its role in society is actually the gateway to psychology and psychoanalysis in general. And, that was a pathway I took, and there's many other pathways there, but without discovering the German philosophical idealism system, I wouldn't be as into psychoanalytic thought as I am now. And that's immensely helped my life and a lot of the people close to me, anyone who interacts with me, because I'm a much better person now because of that. But I knew very early on that when I was starting to study German idealism, but that there was that connection there, and I could use it for growth. I could use it to sit there like Heidegger did and use it to detract from life, or I could use it to grow into life. So I could go on all day about, and dude, that's just philosophy. What has Cormac McCarthy done for my life? He helped me understand that I could take things slow, and that most of the world was just, this big simulation, and that spending time in nature and detaching and taking it slow and even pursuing an artistic or, a path of writing with no remorse and, even giving up love for it was something that I could do. And I integrated a lot of those lessons into my life, and they affect me every single day. So let me know your guys' thoughts. I could talk for 4 hours about moral, living a moral life with philosophy and all this stuff. This is one of my favorite topics, but a lot of people don't like this because a lot of people want to live the way that they want to live, and hearing other people say that you should use knowledge so that you can live a better life, and this is how you can do it, turns a lot of people off, because we have so many emotional wounds when it comes to education and society, because in the public education system, we're ranked and had our individuality taken most of the time, and we're not helped to grow into individuals. So we have all this pain and trauma. So when we hear someone saying that you can use books and knowledge and philosophy to do these things, people see that as that I'm saying that they have a lack within themselves. That, hey, if you're a Reddit philosophy bro, that you have this lack within yourself. It's really no, it just means that you have all this room to grow, that you get to experience some of the greatest revelations and journey. That initial journey of using knowledge to change your life is eye-opening and insane. And you guys get to experience the most beautiful thing of all time. That's how it should be framed. But a lot of people, trauma around education and knowledge in general, and this is getting worse and worse because all these dumb philosophy bros, I can't tell you how many fuckboys I know out there who are into philosophy and have all this knowledge, and they just use it to pick up chicks and pump and dump. I swear to God that almost every single philosophy bro, other than like the golden boy idyllic ones that I have known that have actually used their knowledge and integrated it, has mostly been just to get laid and to like live a very promiscuous lifestyle. And that's fine, but like when I look at it I'm like, why not go lift some weights, Get rich if you want to do that. That's actually a lot more successful. And there's all these, and that's what starts to happen when people start to think too much. I've been a victim of this myself. I'm sure a lot of you guys have too. When you have a lot of time on your hands and you're reading a lot and you're very internal and probably an introvert, you start coming up with these crazy theories like, man, if I write this book or I do this, I'm going to be able to get laid. Or, that's sadly a lot of guys' thought process. There's one day going to be someone who can understand me. And it's like, no, man, if you just understand yourself, then you can understand others. And it doesn't matter if someone understands Schopenhauer's concept of evil. So thank you guys for checking out this video. And there will be more Cormac McCarthy stuff soon. Stella Maris videos are dropping tomorrow. I'm very excited about that. And there'll be a lot of more content about that book this whole next week. Peace.